Executive Arab man sees a homeless African woman with 2 children and recognizes her. What he did next was heartbreakingly beautiful. He stepped out of his bulletproof black SUV onto the rainy streets of Casablanca, his designer shoes splashing into shallow puddles, unaware that his life was about to collide with a memory he had buried long ago. Karim Al-Fayed, one of the wealthiest and most feared Arab executives in the world, known for his icy business tactics and stone-cold decisions, froze in his tracks. Not because of a business deal gone wrong, but because of her. On a torn piece of cardboard, under the broken awning of an abandoned cafe, sat a woman wrapped in a filthy blanket, with 2 small children huddled against her sides. But it wasn't just any woman. It was Zara. And the moment his eyes met hers, something inside him broke. Years ago, she had saved his life. Not with money, not with power, but with kindness, with bread, with hope. She had believed in him when he had nothing, not even his name. And now she was here, invisible to the world, forgotten, starving, with 2 children that looked at him with the same eyes he once saw in the mirror. What he did next would shock every soul who heard this story, but it would also reveal that behind the billions, behind the suits, behind the legacy, he had never forgotten her. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring more inspiring stories like this to you. Now, let me tell you what Karim Al-Fayed did that rainy afternoon, and why the world hasn't stopped talking about it since. The rain in Casablanca that day felt different. It wasn't the kind that passed quickly, washing away the dust and vanishing with the wind. No, this was the kind of rain that lingered, heavy and constant, soaking the city and its secrets. Karim Al-Fayed stepped out of the back seat of his armored Mercedes Maybach, an umbrella instantly opening above his head. His driver, Nasser, followed closely behind, speaking into his earpiece, coordinating the next meeting with government officials. Karim, however, was only half listening. He had come back to Morocco for business, nothing more. A new real estate acquisition along the coast. A luxury project. Clean, strategic, cold, just the way he liked it. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. As he walked toward the towering entrance of the governor's office, he noticed a cluster of people across the street dispersing quickly, like frightened birds. A homeless woman sat alone under a collapsed awning, drenched, clutching 2 children, 1 on each side, both wrapped in plastic bags and rags. He wouldn't have looked twice. He never did. Not anymore. He had taught himself that empathy was a liability. He couldn't afford it. Not in boardrooms, not in war zones, not in life. But something about her made him stop mid-step. His chest tightened. His breath caught in his throat. She raised her head slowly, as if it took effort just to meet his gaze, and when she did, the world around him fell silent. "Zara?" He didn't say it aloud, but the name echoed in his mind like thunder. He saw her face, not the weathered version before him, but the one etched into his memory. The girl who used to bring him water when he was a street rat, 17 and desperate, hiding from the police behind broken alleys in Marrakesh. The girl who taught him how to pray again when he had stopped believing. The girl who had risked her own safety to sneak him food from her father's bakery. And now she was here, on the street. Her skin ash-gray from exhaustion, her body trembling beneath layers of wet cloth. And those children, her children, they looked no older than 5 and 3, their eyes wide, their cheeks hollow. Karim didn't realize his umbrella had tilted. Rain soaked his suit, but he didn't move. "Sir," Nasser said, noticing his distraction, "is everything all right?" He couldn't answer. He crossed the street without a word, ignoring traffic, ignoring the voices calling after him. He stopped just a few feet away from her, not knowing if she'd recognize him. Her eyes squinted, her head tilted. Then, "Karim?" she whispered, voice cracking. "Karim Al-Fayed?" He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. She tried to stand, but the children clung to her legs, terrified of the stranger in a suit. Her legs buckled. Karim dropped to his knees. He didn't care about the mud. He didn't care about the cameras across the street. He didn't care that an investor was waiting inside with a $200 million contract. He took off his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. Zara's lips trembled, but not from cold, from disbelief. "You," she murmured. "You were just a boy." "And you," he said softly, "were my only friend." The older child, a boy, looked up at him with curious eyes. "Are you a king?" he asked innocently. Karim blinked away the tears. "No, little one," he said, placing his hand on the boy's head. "But today, I will act like one." And in that moment, something inside him changed, not out of pity, not out of guilt, but because he remembered something rare, something sacred. He remembered who he was before the suits, before the titles, before the empire. And it all started with a girl who gave him bread. He looked Zara in the eyes, his voice steady. "Come with me. You'll never sleep on the street again." As they walked toward the car, Karim didn't notice the phones filming from behind half-open windows, nor the security guards whispering into radios. All he saw was the woman who once believed in him, and the chance to finally repay a debt no amount of money could ever equal. Zara didn't speak much in the car. Her hands clung to her children like they might disappear if she let go. The older boy, Jamal, stared at the touchscreen glowing in front of him with wide, bewildered eyes, while little Noura buried her face in her mother's chest, half asleep, half scared. The smell of rich leather, the faint scent of Karim's cologne, and the absolute silence of the luxury Maybach felt like another planet. Karim sat across from them, watching, not saying a word. His phone buzzed with back-to-back notifications. His assistants, his advisors, board members, wondering why the morning meeting had been cancelled last minute. He ignored everyone. His eyes stayed fixed on Zara. Even after all these years, her presence still grounded him. She had changed, yes. Time had pressed hard on her features, and her frame was thinner now. But her eyes were exactly the same. Steady, protective, full of something this world rarely offered anymore. Grace. The car stopped in front of one of his private residences, a white marble estate in the hills overlooking the coast. Two maids rushed out, unsure why their boss had returned hours ahead of schedule and in such an unusual state. But they asked no questions when they saw the children. "Prepare 3 rooms," Karim said calmly. "Warm baths, food, clothes. I want them all treated like royalty." Zara turned toward him, clutching her daughter a little tighter. "Karim, this is too much. We don't want—" "You need rest," he interrupted, his voice low but firm. "That's all." She hesitated, her pride surfacing for just a moment. "I owe you more than this," he added gently, "and you know it." Zara looked away, eyes glassy. She didn't argue again. Inside, the warmth of the house wrapped around them like a blanket. The children were hesitant at first, Jamal holding tightly to Zara's leg, Nora crying when a maid tried to offer her a cookie. But slowly, the softness of the rugs, the scent of food in the air, and the golden lights made the fear fade from their tiny faces. Karim stood silently at the base of the staircase as Zara and the kids were led to their rooms. The moment they disappeared from sight, he exhaled, for the first time in what felt like years. Not the cold, businesslike breaths he took before every deal, but a real one. A breath of truth. He poured himself a drink, something rare, something aged, and walked out to the balcony, staring at the ocean. What were the odds? He'd always believed in control, in plans, in precision. But how could he explain this? That the very person who once fed him when he was nothing would reappear years later, starving on his own doorstep. He remembered the bread she used to bring him, still warm from her father's oven. The way she used to look at him like he was someone, even when he was a thief on the run. Back then, she had said, "You don't belong in the street. You have a mind made for towers." And now he had towers in Dubai, Riyadh, London. But it meant nothing if she was sleeping on cardboard. That night, after the children were asleep and Zara had showered and changed into soft linen pajamas provided by the housekeeper, Karim invited her to the dining room. No staff, just the two of them. She sat across from him in silence, unsure where to start. "You look strong," he said softly, breaking the quiet. "Tired, but strong." Zara gave a small smile. "I survived, that's all." Tell me what happened. And she did. She told him about the bakery burning down, her father's death, the failed marriage, the man who promised love but left when Noura was born, the months she spent begging for jobs, the years moving from shelter to shelter, the night she started sleeping on the street. Karim listened without interruption. His knuckles turned white around his glass. When she finished, she looked at him and said, "You don't owe me anything, Karim. What I did back then, I never expected anything in return." "I know," he replied. "That's exactly why I'll never let you suffer again." He stood, walked over to her side of the table, and placed a small envelope beside her plate. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a deed, her name, her children's names, a villa, fully paid, near a good school. Zara gasped. "Karim, you gave me dignity when I had none," he said quietly. "Now I'm just returning it." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but this time they weren't born of despair. They were tears of being seen, of being remembered. And somewhere in the next room, her children slept under warm blankets, dreaming of things they never believed they could have. Karim didn't sleep that night. He stood at the edge of his office's vast window, looking out over the city lights of Casablanca. Below him, the quiet streets glistened with the last remnants of rain. In his hand, a photo, creased, worn, and so old it was barely holding together. Two kids in a dusty alley, sitting cross-legged with a piece of flatbread between them. One was him, young and gaunt. The other was Zara, laughing. He had kept it in a drawer all these years. Through empires, mergers, and international fame, he had never thrown it away. And now, here she was again, under his roof, with two children of her own, carrying the weight of 1,000 nights he hadn't seen. Karim ran a hand down his face. He had spent his life building a fortress of power around himself, but tonight it all felt fragile, like her presence alone could reduce it to sand. The next morning, Zara woke to the sound of birds and the smell of something warm. She blinked in confusion. For a second, she thought she had dreamed it all, the car, the house, the food. But there she was, in a sunlit bedroom with linen curtains blowing gently in the breeze, and on a tray at the foot of the bed, fresh breakfast for her and the children. Jamal and Noura were already awake, giggling as they discovered stuffed animals beside their pillows. Zara smiled faintly, but the doubt still pressed against her chest like a stone. What was this? Charity? Guilt? A moment of nostalgia? She didn't want pity. She didn't need saving, or so she told herself. Later that morning, Karim invited her to walk with him through the garden. She hesitated. She wasn't used to clean clothes and soft shoes anymore, but eventually joined him. "I can't accept the villa," she said plainly, as they walked past the flowering trees. "It's too much. I need to work. I need to stand on my own." Karim stopped walking. Do you think I see you as weak? Zara met his gaze. I think you don't see the woman I've become. I'm not that girl anymore, Karim. I've been broken and rebuilt more times than I can count. A quiet moment passed between them. That's exactly why I admire you, he said finally. Not because you saved me once, but because you've survived so much more than I ever had to. She looked at him, unsure how to respond. I built everything I have from nothing, he continued. But I never had to do it while raising 2 kids alone, while being invisible, while holding back tears just to make it through the day. His voice wavered, and Zara saw something new in his eyes: vulnerability, regret, maybe even love. I don't want to rescue you, he added. I want to walk beside you, if you'll let me. Zara's heart thudded in her chest. This wasn't the same boy she once knew. This man, this executive whose name was printed in headlines, was still holding on to the warmth she once offered him. And something about that scared her more than the streets ever had. That evening, Karim arranged something unusual. He took Zara and the children out. No drivers, no cameras, no headlines, just them. To a small market near the outskirts of the city where he used to roam barefoot as a boy. He bought them fresh fruit, honey cakes, and new shoes. Jamal rode on his shoulders like a prince. Noura fed him sticky sweets and giggled every time he made a silly face. Zara watched him with quiet amazement. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was trying to remember who he had been with her. As they walked back to the car, Karim slowed beside her. You know, he said, people think I built my empire with money. But the truth is, it started with one gift. She raised an eyebrow. What gift? A piece of bread, he smiled, and the belief that I was more than the streets told me. Zara looked away, hiding tears. You were always more. They didn't speak again until the car was already driving home, the kids asleep in the back seat. And in the silence, she reached for his hand, just for a second, and he didn't let go. The media found out. Karim had hoped to keep Zara's return quiet, to shield her from the hungry glare of cameras and cruel headlines. But the moment a single photo leaked, him in the old market, carrying a barefoot boy on his shoulders while holding the hand of a woman in modest clothing, the story exploded across North African and Gulf tabloids. Billionaire Arab executive with secret family? Who is the woman that melted Karim Al-Fayed's heart? Zara saw the article on a morning news broadcast while sipping tea on the balcony. Her hands trembled. The children were still asleep. She hadn't expected this, never asked for it, and the last thing she wanted was to become a pawn in someone else's story. By the time Karim walked into the kitchen, his phone already buzzing non-stop, her jaw was clenched tight. I didn't tell anyone, he said immediately. I swear. Zara nodded but kept her distance. You didn't have to. The world watches men like you. Karim sat across from her, removing his watch and placing it on the table, a gesture he rarely made. It meant, I'm not here as the executive. I'm just me. They'll twist this, Zara, turn it into something it's not, but I won't let them hurt you. Zara looked at him, voice calm. They already did, not with words, but by reminding me of how different we are now. You think I don't know that? He asked. You think I don't wake up every day, wondering how someone like me ended up wearing suits while someone like you had to sleep on cement? Her eyes didn't flinch. Then why did you never come back for me? The question shattered the quiet. Karim opened his mouth, then closed it again. He hadn't expected that. Of all the things she could have said, that one hit the deepest. I did come back, he said softly. Twice. But your father told me you moved. He said you didn't want reminders of the past, that you had married well. Zara's lips parted in disbelief. He said that? I believed him, Karim whispered, and it killed me. She looked down at her tea, now cold. I never married for love. I married for survival, and I lost everything trying to hold on to it. Silence again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was raw. I thought of you every year on the anniversary of that bread, he said. Every single year. Zara finally smiled, tired but real. I never stopped praying for you, even when I had nothing left. That afternoon, Zara's past caught up in a different way. At the villa's front gate, a man arrived, ragged, sunburnt, bitter-eyed. Jamal's father. His name was Idris. A man Zara had escaped 5 years ago after enduring violence and threats. She had heard rumors he was still alive, but hadn't seen him since Noura was a baby. Now, he stood on Karim's property, screaming her name. Karim's security intervened instantly, blocking the man from entering. But the noise, the fury, reached every corner of the house. Zara stood frozen, clutching the children who trembled in her arms. Karim didn't hesitate. He marched to the gate himself. Get off my land, Karim said, voice controlled but deadly. I came for my son, Idris snarled. She's mine. She belongs to no one, Karim replied. And if you ever come near her or those children again, I will bury you in court before you can blink. Idris spat on the ground. You rich pigs think money fixes everything, but the street always remembers. Karim took a step closer. Good. Then remember this. She saved me once when I had nothing. Now, I'll spend everything I have protecting her. With that, he turned away, already dialing his attorney. Within the hour, Karim filed for emergency protection orders. His legal team prepared custody documents. And Zara, shaken but resolute, knew something had changed. Not just in her world, but in his. That night, she watched Karim from across the living room as he gently placed Jamal and Noura into their beds, brushing their hair back with a tenderness she'd never seen before. And when he came to sit beside her, she didn't speak. She simply took his hand again. This time, she held it longer. 2 days later, Karim placed a folder in Zara's hands. Inside, full legal guardianship of the children, Zara's name restored on all records, and a scholarship fund Karim had created under Jamal and Noura's names. She stared at the documents, stunned. "What is this?" she asked. "It's not charity," Karim said. "It's a foundation, in your name, to help women like you." Zara's lips trembled. "Why me?" "Because you were the reason I made it," he replied. "Now it's time others see your strength too." Karim invited Zara to a gala, a fundraising event for the new foundation. She hesitated, but he insisted. That night, she wore a long emerald gown, simple yet radiant. As they entered the ballroom, guests turned, not in judgment, but in awe. "This," Karim told the crowd, "is the woman who once gave me bread when I had nothing. Today, she gives the world hope." Tears filled Zara's eyes as the room applauded. For the first time, she wasn't invisible. She was seen. A month later, Zara stood in the kitchen, watching Karim playing soccer with the children in the garden. He laughed freely, barefoot in the grass. When he came inside, she handed him a wrapped box. Inside was a photo, the same old one, restored and framed. The alley, the bread, the girl and the boy. He touched it like it was gold. "I never forgot that day," she whispered. "Neither did I," he replied. And then he kissed her. The foundation grew. Zara now led community programs for homeless mothers. Karim's businesses flourished, but his heart stayed grounded. In a home filled with laughter and late-night stories. Jamal called him Baba without thinking. Noura painted his face with glitter one Sunday. They were family now. And Zara? She didn't walk behind Karim anymore. She walked beside him, head high, hand in hand. Years later, a journalist asked Karim what his greatest investment had ever been. He smiled. "A piece of bread, and the woman who gave it to me." Zara stood beside him, holding his hand, and in the audience, dozens of women, once homeless, now thriving, stood too. Because sometimes the most powerful love story isn't the one that begins with romance. It's the one that begins with kindness. If this story moved you, remember this. True wealth is not in what we own, but in who we lift up along the way. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who still believes in second chances and unforgettable love.